G'day guys, Wes Zandt here from the Down Under Centre in Australia Trade Training College. I'm joined by one of our Welder assessors, Steve Tran. So Steve, welcome mate.
Thanks, Wes, for being here. It's good to come and share some knowledge on how to use the portal and information for the candidates.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate it mate. So guys, Steve's one of our welding assessors. So let's talk about the welding skills assessment. So the welding skills assessment is a mandatory document required for the purpose of immigration for a skilled independent visa. Depending on the passport you hold, it might be required if you're applying for a 482 visa, or if you've got an employer and they're going to nominate you for the ENS 186 visa, it's a mandatory document. So for many people that want to move to Australia, you'll probably come into a conversation with Steve at some point doing your assessment. So what is a skills assessment? A skills assessment is broken into two stages. You have pathway 1 and pathway 2. For most people, pathway 1 is where you'll be. Pathway 1 means you don't hold an Australian qualification, where pathway 2 means you hold an Australian qualification. So maybe you're onshore and you've got an RPL, you become a pathway 2 client. But most of you will be pathway 1. So a skills assessment, the two stages. The first part is, I always feel it's the hardest part, is what we call as a documentary assessment. You've got to prove on paper you've got the necessary skills. If you've got a relevant qualification, you need 3 years of full-time paid work experience, and that could be pre or post qualification. So if you've just finished your apprenticeship as a welder and you've got 3 years of experience and a relevant qualification, you're good to go. Okay. If you've got 5 years of experience, then don't worry about going off and getting a qualification, because we can use 5 years of experience. What you need to prove in the documentary assessment is photos, videos, references, pay documents, tax documents. You're telling a story. You're saying, I'm a welder. I was employed by this company. They're going to write your references. You're going to prove it financially. And then you're going to gather lovely photos and videos for Steve here to assess. The second part of the skills assessment is what we call as a technical interview, where there'll be yourself, one of our assessors like Steve, and also someone known as an invigilator. They're there to make sure no coaching or cheating is happening. Now, what we do at the Down Under Centre is we provide a service called an agency service, where if you're in the UK, for example, we charge a fee of £600 plus VAT. If you're in Australia, it's $1,050 plus GST. This is what we refer to as our agency service. And for that, we'll work with you guys to gather all the documentation you need for a skills assessment. We know exactly what you need for a skills assessment to deliver for immigration. We'll also work with you to gather all the documentation you need for the visa. So if you're applying for a skilled independent visa, it's a points-based visa. So I'll be working with you to gather all the years of evidence. We'll give you practice English exam preparation. We'll give you access to the DUC Employment Hub, which is a tool that connects migrants to employers. And if you're applying for a skilled visa, we'll also give you a free relocation call with one of our relocation agents who's a previous migrant that's been working with the Down Under Centre for a while, living in this. So let's say you move to Queensland, you'll have a chat with them. They'll be able to tell you about, let's say Queensland, you've got Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Brisbane. We've got different relocation agents, and they'll be able to tell you, good schools, be like a sort of big brother, big sister thing to you. And please note, we also put all of our clients in one Facebook group, because even though this video is about the skills assessment, the journey to Australia, as you know, Steve, through Louisa and that, it is challenging. Okay, there's many different aspects to the visa, and the skills assessment's one part, but the emotional side's there. So, but how we do everything, guys, via our agency service is we give you access to what we call is a client portal. So instead of you guessing what photos, videos, references, pay documents, tax documents, what we need your CV to say, we'll give you a guideline, and via the portal, it will clearly explain everything that you need. You upload everything to the portal, and at the other end of the portal will be one of our assessors, for example, Steve, and also what's known as a client manager. They're there to answer your questions. We have amazing turnaround time when you've got questions coming in. We'll reply within 24 to 48 hours. And then the idea is we're gathering everything you need for a skills assessment before you pay the government fee for the skills assessment. So, Steve, let's talk about the skills assessment for a welder. So I just mentioned there you've got the documentary assessment. So, by using the portal enables the migrant to upload photos, videos, and everything that they need. What would happen, you being the assessor, if you're looking for certain photos and someone can't provide that photos? Is there other ways? Can they do a written part? Can you use other units of competency? Can you just run through that for me, please?
Sure. So definitely, that's what you just mentioned. Then other forms of evidence, we can definitely work with the candidate to provide that. Now, it can come in the form of written evidence, or, like you said, other units of competency. There are lots of different units of competency that we can use. Essentially, what we need to gain is 96 points to pass the skills assessment technical interview,
Yep.
which none of the candidates have to worry about. That's all handled by me, the assessor.
Yep.
And I can definitely suggest or help work with the candidate in the best avenues in collecting those photos and video evidence.
Okay, so you mentioned 96 units of competency and 96 points of evidence. So as a welder, give us an example of what a unit of competency might be.
So, for example, we'll go straight off the top with the first unit of competency in every engineering trade, which is MEM 09002, interpret technical drawings. Uh,
Yep.
you might get a question asked from the assessor, something along the lines of, tell me the information that you might find on a technical drawing. So it's simple questioning. It's not hard. It's not complex, but it's getting the core of the information we need to pass the assessment.
Yeah, and I guess it's the old saying: if you're a welder, you're going to get through. But what sort of welding do you look for? Obviously, there's different types: MIG, TIG. What sort
Yeah.
of welding experience are you looking for?
Exactly. So, look, for a welder first class or a welder, we really need you to have at least three welding processes that you're able to perform. Now, when some people come to me and say, well, Steve, I can only MIG weld and stick weld, well, that's fine. Most people, what they don't understand is if they can Gmal, so which is MIG welding in layman's terms, they're always going to be able to do FCAL, so flux core arc welding, exactly the same unit, exactly the same process, just a little bit different with the gases and the flux core of the wire. So anybody who can MIG weld, guarantee you they can flux core arc weld. So three welding processes for a welder is sort of the minimum requirement we need to be able to gain the correct points.
Yeah, because I did mention at the start of, the skill assessments are the hardest part of the process. And I think gathering the documentation is really challenging because not only they're waiting on, third party people like employers and references. Now, we'll advise you what we want your reference to say and all of that, through the portal, which is a guideline, show you who to contact at HMRC, for example, give you all the information that you need to do that. But then it comes to you with the photos and the videos and everything. So, you're on the portal, you're there assisting them, helping them gather documents, and the client manager as well. What would happen if there's certain documents that they've submitted, but you're not exactly clear with it? Maybe they're not using the right health and safety gear. Obviously, by using the portal, that won't lead to a fail, but you'll go back to them and advise them what exactly you're looking for.
Exactly. Ultimately, this portal is saving time. It's saving the candidate crucial time that they could be, migrating a lot quicker. We're on the back end of it, and like you said, we are replying within 24 hours, if not earlier in most cases. So if there is something that is not right that we know that it may be held up, we'll be straight on it and work with you, and we let the candidates know that, hey, like, let's go here. This is an issue here. Let's get this sorted now. We're in constant sort of communication with each other, and the pathways of communication are always open. Look, when it's emergencies, we've got private numbers that we're calling the candidate, and it's not just on portal. We are picking up the phone and we're saying, "Hey, how are you? I need this from you to get over it quicker."
Yeah, it is challenging because you sort of want them to get it through quickly because you want to deliver the assessment, but the migrant's also in the same. So, yeah, it definitely works well. But what are challenges that you feel that that welders face during their during the documentary assessment stage, and then we'll move to the technical interview stage after that?
Sure. So documentary stage is always the most challenging, okay? And where it is challenging is past employment. That's where we're finding a lot of the candidates, maybe they might have had an employer that no longer is open, or possibly they just, they've lost contact with that employer or not willing to work with them. There are ways. There are ways that we can gather information to support your claim that you did work there. So that's the hardest part.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And then, getting photos and videos and all that. What are good ideas you suggest when someone's doing it? Like you mentioned, they've got to prove certain styles of welding. So do you ask for certain, like a number of different videos for them to be successful for their skills assessment?
Look, in Australia, and especially for the TRA, we need certain evidence. Now, this evidence has to be valid, It has to have also your face in it, so it needs to be authentic. And the way that we gather this is there's no set. I need two pictures and one video. We need one video. You can certainly capture all of that evidence in, and it's usually only about a 1 minute video and maybe a couple of photos. So, for example, let's say gas metal arc welding. We'll get you to do a weld, and then after, just take some photos of the weld quality so that we can check that we're not getting undercutting, pitting, or porosity in the weld. That's the way that we can check. That the evidence is going to get through.
Yeah, I guess they probably get a bit nervous in videos, but there's no real need. You just got to do what you're doing at work. Put make sure you're providing, you're wearing the right health and safety equipment and everything. And don't forget, if you are a welder and you're listening to this, that this is our job. We're here to support you through the process. Now, let's talk about the technical interview, mate, because I reckon that's what a lot of people fear about, but that's actually a lot easier than doing than gathering the documents. So I mentioned an invigilator before. What's the role of the invigilator?
So look, the role of the invigilator is to check that we're both being compliant. So not only are they there to check that I'm doing my correct role and being fair, but they're also checking the applicants. That they're not getting themselves. There's no cheating going on, or they're not getting extremely worried. There's been times where the invigilator has stepped in and gone, I think we might have a 5 minute break here, guys. Let's come back after 5 minutes and we'll get back into the interview.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's good because it shows that there's a fair assessment. I mean, you have an important job. Your job's to deliver a fair assessment, and then the completion of that assessment, the welder will get their full Australian qualification if they're a Pathway 1 client, as well as a document they need to apply for the visa. So I guess it's a bit nerve-wracking. What are maybe some questions you might ask someone who's, I know that in the portal you've made other videos which give a bit more detail in it, but what might be some questions that you might throw at a welder who's doing a technical interview?
Yeah, look, what I try to tell every candidate, and usually I will mention before we go into the technical interview, maybe a few days before, more often than not, we will talk to the candidate. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll be talking to you, and we'll be having a chat about the process and also, some of the questions that may come up. Now, the way that I can explain it to people is let's have a chat. And this is what I say when I go into all of the technical interviews. Don't think of it as an interview. Think of it as a conversation between two work colleagues. So I might ask you, hey, Wes, can you tell me about some of the hand tools that you might use at work? And then they'll reply. So it's structured not as a formal I'm really drilling it into you what I need. It's a conversation between two work colleagues, realistically.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think I like that sort of, that wording rather than a technical interview.
Yeah.
It is just a chat that you're going to ask the necessary questions because at the end of the day, guys, you need this document to apply for your skilled visa and potentially for an employer-sponsored visa. But there's definitely, look, we've got the tools and the resources to make your skills assessment a lot easier. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit our info, put an inquiry in. If you're not sure what points you're at, you've got for the visa, fill in our points calculator. Guys, we also run monthly free migration webinars. We've been doing that for over 15 years. The first Tuesday of every month, Steve, I'm up early, giving migration webinars, and we're here to help. So, mate, you're a busy man because you also assess metal fabs, welders and fitters, along with our other assessors. Which is your favourite trade, mate? Remember, this is going on the welding one.
Definitely welders. Welders
Definitely
are my favourite.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to say that. And the work for welders in Australia at the moment, it's there's a bunch of work in there.
Look, Australia is a growing country, and there's a lot of space out there and a lot of jobs, especially in those really nice, high-paying roles in the mining, oil, and gas industries.
Yeah,
There's a lot of opportunity.
yeah, perfect. Well, mate, thanks for joining us, and guys, hope you enjoyed this little quick video. And yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to email info. Cheers again, guys. Take care.